And unfortunately, a lot of our technology is now running our lives. We're not using it as a tool. It's in charge of our lives. And that's the danger around technology and young people, is because they haven't developed these skills of how to manage discomfort in their bodies. Because feeling emotions and sensations isn't always comfortable, but it's important. And when they feel uncomfortable and they don't have adults to turn to who are showing them how to deal with emotions, they often turn to their cell phones to get away from what they're feeling, and as a form of connection. And there's nothing wrong. It's better. FaceTime is better than nothing, but it can't. And then often kids turn to video games. Again, there's some recreation in it. There's probably some building of the brain, but there's also a lot of escape in it. And there's nothing wrong with escaping sometimes, but if you're doing it constantly and never in your body, it's going to be problematic for learning how to deal with life. Ultimately, there's nothing that beats this form of connection for kids or for teenagers or for adults for that matter. Human connection where people are really listening to us and trying to understand how we feel without trying to tell us how to feel or without trying to change us is very rare in this day and age. It means the most to me when I can connect with people in my life who just want to listen and understand, and who are authentically sharing back their own responses to how they connect with what I'm sharing. Sometimes after listening to your own child, you might say, hey, I went through that too as a kid, or I go through that sense of fear too sometimes, and this is what I do. That connection means so much. And I want to talk a little bit about the science connection, because everything I'm going to share with you today or tonight is really about how your connection with your child affects their brain and their nervous system, and how this connection wires the brain. So it's everything to do with science, because I like talking about science because it's not a theory or an opinion, but it's science. We know so much about the brain, and unfortunately we've known this for 20 years or so. It's been very slow to be implemented into businesses or education. Athletic teams, college and professional athletic teams, incorporate a lot of brain science because they know how it affects productivity. It's a really cool time in our world, and yet it's like the future frontier. If you think space is quite unknown, the brain is still quite unknown. We're doing research on babies' brains and figuring out what works in terms of connection. When they play, how does it affect their brain? And this is what we know, that there's a sequence, a bottom-up growth from birth through adulthood. And the front part of the brain, the last part, isn't even wired fully to 25 years in boys and 29 years in girls. And even then, the brain can be changed at any age if you're determined enough. But the brainstem is online at birth, half of the limbic system, the other half matures by I don't know, I've never heard anyone say this, but somewhere around 2 or 3, I think. I only say think because I'm not sure anyone really knows. And then the frontal cortex. Every act of connection and working on social emotional learning is going to develop the front part of the brain right behind your front eyes and your forehead. It's called the frontal cortex. It's where we think and reflect. We parent and we teach in an upside down way. And we try, meaning that when kids are feeling strong emotions, we immediately go to logic. And we try to reason them out of this state. And what they're wanting is an emotional connection. And they're needing some coaching on how to deal with emotions, not by telling them, but by modeling it or by being in relationship. These arrows are pointing to the top layer of your brain. This is showing you the right side of your brain. Your brain is divided into 2 sides, they're called hemispheres. The right side is your sort of emotional side of your brain, and your left side is your very logical part of your brain. And so this is a right side of your brain in the top layer called the cortex. That's where we think and reflect. Now, the 2 bottom layers called the brainstem and limbic system are where sensations and emotions are produced. It's not logical. when kids are feeling big emotions, they're down in this part of the brain. And you can't reason with them when they're really stressed out with emotions. And that's why it's important to make an emotional connection, which will help them manage the emotions so they can get up to the frontal cortex and think about something. And then you can problem solve. So what's the brainstem do? It's survival. Everything to do with survival in our body and anything to do with calming our nervous system is the brainstem. And again, it's online at birth. So we've been wiring the brainstem since the moment we took our first breath. The limbic system is an emotional center. It produces emotions and motivation, and it also helps us connect with others. These two parts of the brain are critical to help kids learn how to meet the needs of these areas. This is the area we're trying to develop, and everything you do for your child all day long related to emotions and managing them is you're trying to wire that front part of the brain where they think and reflect and analyze about their emotions. This is the part that's logical, and you can't get here by going there. You have to help a child get there through connection. If you look at this young girl, and if this is your child and you're holding her, first of all, what do you think the man's feeling, this guy? Or if we'll just put you in his place and this is your child. What would you be feeling if you were holding her right now? And if you're not sure, that's okay. Just be curious. It looks like she's obviously in some distress. It could be sadness. It could be fear. It could be anger. It could be all of them. It could be hurt. So one of those, but she definitely needs some help managing those feelings because she doesn't have a wired frontal cortex. Her frontal cortex is barely online. It only comes online at 8 months old. So she needs the help of you in managing those upsetting feelings. And it's not by telling her to stop it or trying to shut down those feelings. It's by embracing those feelings and by breathing and self-soothing her. And that's going to help her learn to feel this tough feeling and to manage it and soothe herself. So again, she's down here right now, right? These areas where it's survival and emotions. And your ability to connect with her will help her get up to this part, up to the frontal cortex. And I just want to show you our limbic systems. The arrows are showing the emotional part of the brain. So sometimes the men, some women say, but I'm not emotional. I'm not a touchy-feely person. But we all are touchy-feely. We've learned not to feel. It's in our nature to feel. And we've learned early in life in order to survive or deal with not having parents around or people who could connect with us emotionally, we had to shut down emotions and avoid them and find other strategies to cope, which might be avoidance or shutting down or going away or keeping busy or eating sugar. That was something I did to soothe myself as a kid. I ate a lot of sugar. But it didn't help me deal with my fear. It was a temporary fix, as they say. The smoke alarm in your brain is the amygdala. You don't need to know anything about the emotional memories right there. I just want you to know we're all wired on the inside the same across cultures and races. How can you support your child at home? First of all, I want you to know that all the Lawrence County schools are using a curriculum that I wrote called In Focus. The orange book is kindergarten to second grade. The green one is 3 to 5th grade, and the blue one is 6th to 8th grade. And I think the high schools maybe are using the 6th to 8th grade because a lot of the skills apply. And so they're doing this on a consistent basis as of this year in your schools, which is wonderful, especially now during the pandemic. And this is what a lesson, it's very short, 10 to 15 minutes, doesn't take too much class time. The teachers have been getting trained in how to implement it throughout the day into reading, writing, and math and all subjects integrated. But it's a quick lesson that teachers do at the beginning of the day, ideally. This one is for the little kids, is dealing with fear. This one is for the 3rd to 5th graders, are dealing with how do you think? How do you develop the optimistic, hopeful attitude? And then for the 6th to 8th grade, using writing to express feelings. And so I want to talk about the home activities because all of the Lawrence County skills have access to the In Focus at-home activities, which I think if there's one thing you take away tonight is to contact your principal. And Dr. Brink, who was initially on this call, has it, and all the principals I imagine have it. I know that Ford and Waterloo, which are two schools that are part of a research study in South Carolina, and they're using InFocus in their classrooms. They have it, but you can request it and you can get access. And again, contact your principal and they can alert you to that. But where the red arrow is how to use the at-home activities. And you go online and you can pull this up on your phone or your tablet or your computer. And this is at the beginning where it gives you tips on what to use. And I'll actually go back one. So if you see up at the top how to use the at-home activity, I'm sorry, I was right there, great. It'll give you coaching. Now this is something I for sure would read, because it says ways to talk about a lesson without talking. So how can you talk to your child when they don't want to talk? And it gives you ideas that are so important as a parent. First of all, that first paragraph is imperfection is perfection, meaning you don't have to be perfect as a parent. We're all very human, and it's our humanness that's our greatest gift to share with our children in terms of teaching them that being vulnerable and authentic and real is powerful. And it's the best way to connect. So just sharing your authenticity with your child, where you struggle with emotions or soothing yourself, and still working on it with them would be big. Because it takes the shame out of all these topics. There is no shame. I know we've had shame over the past, decade or century around mental health, but that's changing. And below it says, develop your own social emotional intelligence. And that's the most powerful thing you can do. And it gives you tips on how to do it. And then if you go into these student self-reflection slides, your child can pull up, or you can pull up this. So when they do the lesson at school, they can go home and it says paying attention to emotions, and it gives students a key. And you could talk to your child about this. It says, what do you feel right now? Happy, sad, angry, afraid, hurt, or love? It's okay to feel whatever you feel. Do you know why you feel that emotion? Who can you share your feelings with? And this is something your child can pull up on their phone or the computer to review what they learned in school. And and here's another example of another skill for a different day. Every day there's a skill that they work on in school for 10 or 15 minutes, and you can pull it up and learn about it, and your child can review it at home. I want you to, and one thing I didn't show you, and I think I will down the road, but there's 3 languages of the brain, and this is an important skill you can do at home. There's sensations, that's a language of the brainstem, or the survival center. Physical sensations like a racing heart, a tight stomach, tight shoulders, tight forehead, fluttery feeling in your stomach. Emotions and memories are the language of the limbic system. These 2 languages of the brain are critical for kids. They want to connect this way. And that's often the disconnect between parents and teenagers and kids is we deal as an adult more logically sometimes, and kids want to deal emotionally, and they need coaching in this area. So, in the frontal cortex, the language of that is images, thoughts, and words. So, to get really comfortable with being in your body, which might take practice, especially if you've been through any trauma in your life, it can be hard to be in your body. So be gentle in everything you do with yourself, because you're learning as you go with your child. But all the different sensations in your body, cool, sharp, eerie, throbbing, light, still, empty, twitching, dull, wobbly, bubbly, hot, hollow. This is the language of the brainstem. Now there's 6 primary feelings from the limbic system or emotional center: happy and sad, scared and love, angry and hurt. And these are part of the curriculum. You can pull them up online. All of this I'm sharing tonight's online at the InFocus at home activities. But it's really important to get familiar and just reflect on what you think about these. Happy is pretty easy to feel. How do you deal with sadness? Is that something you're aware of? Or how do you deal with it when you feel sad? Because a lot of the most powerful thing you can do for your child is, what do you model? And what do you reflect out loud? And if you can reflect more about your challenges or strengths, or noticing that you're feeling sad, and wonder what I can do. I'm feeling sad right now. When you reflect out loud, your kids are going to reflect with you, whether they want to or not. And if they ask you why you're doing it, say, hey, I'm trying to get stronger in this area because it's important. How do you deal with fear? What's your go-to? And again, there are no right or wrong answers, and no shame. We're all doing the best we can, and this is a learning. How do you deal with love? How do you show it? How do you deal with anger? How do you show it? How do you deal with hurt? And how do you show it? Because if you don't show your emotions and show your child how you regulate them or deal with them and how you soothe yourself, how are they going to learn that? And again, a lot of parents are taught to shake it off, to tough it out, don't show feelings. That's tough, again, for parents and teachers. So again, sometimes people use the word feelings, sometimes they use emotions. Feelings are within you, and the moment you express feelings, they become emotions. What's the purpose of emotions? Because in the past they were seen as weakness, but they're not. Emotion, you see the word motion, it's energy and information to guide decisions. You need emotions to make good decisions in your life, and to connect to other people, and to motivate you. Without emotions, our world would be very bland. And with emotions, they get very complicated and messy unless we learn to manage them. This is sort of emotions in the body, and often we push them down. If you notice, that energy flowing in the body, when you sort of dam up a river like this, it's going to overflow and cause damage. Same thing with emotions. A lot of times when you push down emotions, it'll cause body aches. A lot of my tension in my muscles over the years have, when I didn't deal with my emotions well, or the early trauma I had in my life, it gets stored in my body, locked there, and it can cause physical health problems. So the more you deal with emotions, it's going to free up your body. How do you express your emotions? Where does that energy go? And again, be curious, because the more you can learn about yourself, the more you can be there for your child and be authentic. How do your parents respond to these emotions? Again, they were doing the best they can too. There are no right or wrong answers, but to get curious and to get about what goes on inside you is the most powerful thing you can do. I might skip over some of this. I just show you this quick clip of boys, because we really are teaching boys and girls some mental health practices that aren't good. We mean well, but we've got to change these beliefs. And this is some of the beliefs that boys have, football players. Me growing up as an athlete, I learned these too and had to unlearn them. So, again, these are beliefs, and they can be unlearned, because what we're finding is toughness actually and resilience has to do with the ability to feel fully and feel that feeling and still move through the difficult situation. The old definition of pushing it down and denying it, again, is problematic for not only boys or girls who want to be connected in relationships, because often one partner in a relationship will say the other one can't understand me or feel, and they haven't learned to feel, so it's tough. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and look at a few other things. Girls have their own beliefs, and it's really important as a parent to just start looking at what are your beliefs about emotions without judgment and your attitudes, because again, it's going to help you connect with your child if you can. Again, to get really comfortable and curious about these 6. So there's 6 ways to calm, and again, these are all part of the at-home activities, and if you had a little more time, the hour goes so quickly. I'll just take a quick, but these 6 ways of calming the brain and nervous system are so important when you're talking about teaching kids to deal with strong emotions, because one of the best ways, if you're feeling scared, is to do a calming technique, to feel the fear and then to try to calm the body and brain. And belly breathing or breathing is the number one way, and it takes practice. I still am trying to learn it, because I learned as a young child to hold my breath because things were so scary a lot. It's not a good way to cope with life. But at night, when your child's going to bed, before dinner, before school, to do some belly breathing in the car, on a walk, while you're shooting baskets. Breath can be a part of life, and it's important if you want to calm the brain is if you breathe in through your nose. We'll try it just for a second. We'll take a couple belly breaths. Ideally, I always put my hand on my heart, one on my belly. There is a science reason for that. I mean, there's a vagus nerve that runs through the heart to the gut. But you breathe in through your nose for maybe 2 to 3 to 4 seconds, and then you try to breathe out slowly out your mouth for twice as long. So if you breathe in for 3 seconds, you exhale for 6 seconds. So it would look like this. That longer exhalation or breathing out is going to slow the nervous system and brain and really help a child regulate. And to do it with somebody, with an adult or in a group like a class or at home or at dinner, before dinner, would be very helpful, because there's a synergistic effect when you're out with other human beings breathing. Here's a little family. It could be before going to bed. This is how I always do it, with a hand on the heart and a hand on the belly. So breath is really important. And again, coming back to this connection piece, it's tough for parents, and to give yourself a break as a parent. But just know that often being available and not pushing or giving advice, but telling a teenager especially, the better route with the teenagers is invite them and say, I'm here for you if you ever want to talk. But you got to be careful that if you give them advice and scold them or tell them to knock it off or shame them around showing up and sharing feelings, they're going to get shut down and not want to share it. You've got to be willing to be authentic, and if this is hard for you, be truthful. Say, I want to listen, and if they're sharing and you're really listening and saying, I get this, or I can tell this isn't easy for you. It's not easy for me either. I didn't learn this either. Whatever, or it's not easy for me to deal with fear, but I'm willing to try with you. The idea of really listening and being in their shoes makes a world of difference for any of us. Your first impulse is give advice. Don't be sad. But again, remember, it's a gift to feel in this world, to be alive. And it's a gift to coach your child that it's okay to feel and to help them learn to feel different feelings and not be scared of the different feelings and to learn to calm. It's huge. When adults aren't around, or you go through a pandemic without connection, emotional connection, you get to the point of breaking point. Actually, this is healthier to see a teenager doing this versus going away and isolating. This has been part of the pandemic, unfortunately, but again, how do you connect with a young person to let them know that you're here? And again, the question to fix or not fix means to take away the feeling or to be with the feeling. And I would say to avoid the feeling is not going to teach you what you want them to be, which is a resilient young person who can cope with anything in life. Let's come back to this child who's really sad. And again, if you just go to her and say, hey, what's going on? You look like you're feeling something. Tell me about it. And she says, I don't know I don't know. Huh. I wonder if you're feeling sad. Yes? No? And be curious. But here's how the sort of formula, if you have to remember something in your head, is always feel first. Feeling, sensations, and emotions. And while you're listening to them, this is the hardest part if you can do this. This is sort of a graduate course. Is when you're listening to them, can you come back to yourself and pay attention to what are you noticing about your sensations in your body? What emotions are you feeling while you're listening? And then go back to her. But you want to be connected to yourself while you're connected to her. Because there might be at times you might say to her, hey, I noticed too, you were sharing that your stomach's tight and you're feeling scared. I noticed that my heart's racing and I'm scared too, right with you. I wonder what we can do with these feelings of fear. I wonder what would help us feel better. And maybe, she does say, I don't know. Would you like to breathe together? Would you like to take a walk? Would you like me to give you a hug? Would you like me to put some pressure on you? I'll show you that technique in a second. But first feel, and then comfort. Often parents go to comfort before they allow their child to feel and to feel with them and identify the feelings, then go to comfort, and then there might be a solution, a problem to solve. Maybe a child's teasing your child. Then you want to work with them, and what can we do? And as much as you can help them figure out what to do on their own without telling them, that would be ideal. So again, you want to feel with her and try to help her identify and feel that and breathe and be with yourself for a second. And once you do that, sometimes that's enough. When you really understand the child and get where they're feeling, sometimes they don't need any more. That's comfort right there. I know for me, when people understand me and what I'm feeling, that's comfort enough almost. But you might need to work with her on things she can do to take care of herself, any kind of movement or breath or calming. And again, connection and touch. Here's a young child. What would you do for her? What do you think she's feeling? And if you go up to her again, you want to feel with her. Looks to me like she's feeling scared or worried. And again, you want to feel with her. Try to help her identify the emotion, but identify what her body's feeling too. Remember the brainstem, the lower part talks through sensations, the limbic, the emotional center, talks through emotions. So the more you can get her to feel her body and her emotions and identify it and tell you and describe it and you understand it and make sense out of it, say that makes sense, and don't tell her she shouldn't feel that way or she should act like a big girl. It's not going to help. It's going to make her shut down and feel shame. And then as much as you can teach her and do something that's comforting together with you, meaning breathing together or taking a walk, or maybe it's getting up and cooking, or who knows what it is, but it's something to comfort and to say, hey, you're scared. What could we do to comfort you, to help to deal with the fear? And if she's not sure, give her ideas. And the at-home activities are going to coach you on all this, so don't feel afraid. And then, of course, if there's a do to it, meaning there's a problem to solve, then you want to brainstorm with her. So, ultimately, comfort's so important for little kids. This is how they learn to comfort themselves in life. Without, many of us learned to comfort ourselves when we grew up with eating or with watching TV or shopping, or what I learned in my own therapy called soft addictions. We all have ways to sort of manage strong feelings without, some people do hard things like hard drugs to take away that feeling. But the more we can learn healthy ways when we're young, they become habits then. I just want you to alert you that underneath anger is always hurt and fear. That if you see a child who's really angry, there's hurt and fear below the anger. And if you show me a child who's really hurt, there's probably anger below the hurt. So it's important to honor both emotions and get to the fear. The fear is often a root emotion in everything. Let me just look. We got just about 10 minutes. Let me look at my slides and pick and choose. I want to be sure to pick out the biggest ones. I think I'm going to jump ahead and just give you this technique again. yep, I think I'm going to go here. I always bring a little more, and some of this I repeat in future ones. I always go back and sort of delve deeper into things with each of these. But again, when kids are stressed with big sensations and emotions, remember they're going to be in those lower parts of the brain where they can't think. And so your job is going to help them learn to manage those areas so they can get up to the frontal cortex, right behind the eyes and the forehead, where they can think about these big emotions and sensations and do something about it. Remember the three languages: sensations, emotions, and words, basically. And you might, once in a while this is a really important way to pull the three levels of the brain together, what they call integrating the brain. While you're in the car or you're fixing breakfast and you look at the clock, you might say, oh, we only have 20 minutes before school starts. I notice my heart is racing. So that's what the body sensations or the brain sensation. And I'm feeling scared. That's the limbic or emotions. I'm going to take some deep breaths. So when you reflect out loud in the car, while you're cooking, whatever, about the three languages, sensations, emotions, and some self-care, like a breath or some shaking your hands, rubbing your arms, it helps your child reflect on their body, their sensations, their emotions, and do some self-care. So number one thing you could do all day long is integrating the brain, and this technique's at online resources. You can use this technique while reading out loud. Reading is such a powerful way to deal with emotions. When you're reading a story, stop once in a while and just check in with your body during really intensely emotional times in the story. And check in and see what sensations you're feeling, what emotions, and then do a calming activity, and then go back to the book. Really cool way to teach emotional regulation and integrate the brain. I love reading out loud to kids, and your own children benefit greatly by the connection of reading out loud, and the reading skills do too. But the more you can check in and maybe have these 6 feelings as a bookmark, just print them on a piece of paper, and stop once in a while and just ask these questions of your child. I wonder what the character's feeling right now. And then maybe ask your child, why do you think the character's feeling that? Don't make it a big, long discussion because I don't want to feel like it's in school, but once in a while to throw out a question could be really helpful. How would you feel in that situation if you were in her or his shoes? Why? Just a little bit of dialogue once in a while. How are you feeling about what's happening in the story and why? And again, this is a great way to teach how to feel feelings without them being personally involved, meaning it's about characters in a story. The other thing I'd really encourage you to do as a parent, and you can buy one for your child, is to journal. Journal is such an important way to get your thoughts and feelings on paper and create distance. And it's also a way to learn about when you're triggered and upset, which we all get as teachers and parents, is to write about it when you have 5 minutes at night or early in the morning, those big upsetting events. Put it on paper, because I don't care how advanced or conscious you are, how much personal growth you've done. Early in our life, all those experiences are wired into our brain, and it's going to take a lifetime probably to wire our brain. And it was such a great lesson to learn some of those times we get triggered that's bringing up an old event from when we were growing up. We can use it to connect with our children, to share that we're human, we're still working on these things, but to write about it first. And this is what I would just write about. First of all, how am I feeling and why? But if you get triggered by your child or by a colleague or your partner, you can write about it and express feelings on paper and explore if there's any connections in the past. Because the more you learn about what's impacting your present day from the past, the more you can manage it and it won't run your life. And this is what I wanted to show you. When you pull up the at-home activities, again, the teacher's doing one lesson at home. You can go online, and this is lesson 12A, feeling safe to express emotions. There's background knowledge at the top. It'll tell you what was shared. And today in class, I mean, the background of why it's important. And then self-reflection, this is what I want to highlight right now, is you could write about this and journal about this, and it's going to help build your own social emotional intelligence. And then the at-home activity is what you can talk to your child about. This, I hope you get going on this at home right away if you're in Lawrence County. And then your child can pull up this one too to reflect too. Let me see what else. We got only 5 minutes left. I only have a few more things I want to say. I want to just review what you can do at home, what's most important. First of all, talk about feelings. Make them a part of your day. Even if you're uncomfortable with it, just own that discomfort. Be vulnerable, authentic, and honest. It's the most precious gift you can give children or your adult friends too. Be available, and by the way, you don't have to share everything with your child. Being vulnerable might be just sharing what it's like to be scared right now and what's going on in your body. That's vulnerable. You don't need to share all the details of your life. Be available. Listen to deeply understand. Pick moments of connection to feel in the car, playing a game, walking. Don't push feeling and connection on kids. Invite them and say you're available if they want to talk. Technology-free times. Do something fun instead of being on TV or a computer game. Have dinner twice a week with your family. It's really important for mental health to eat together, to talk together. Once in a while, pause movies or TV shows and reflect about what are you noticing in your body? What are you feeling? What's this bringing up? I've just got to take a deep breath, that kind of thing. Play games with them or watch, pause and reflect with them. If you're playing a video game, again, pause and reflect on the 3 languages of the brain. Make an agreement to do this once or twice a week, to play a video game where you're pausing once in a while to connect to your bodies and the emotions and do a calming activity. Discuss the importance of limiting screen time and make a plan together. Create nourishing ways to connect while walking, playing catch, playing a game, reading a book. And model feeling and expressing emotions and calming yourself in healthy ways. Remember, speak the 3 languages of the brain. I just want to share one last thing. My dad died when I was in 8th grade, and I share this idea every time I present to parents, because I'd give a lot of money if my dad, to have something from my dad like this. My dad, as I said, died in 8th grade when I was 13, and this idea came from the pain of him not saying goodbye and wondering what he thought of me. My dad was taught not to share feelings. That's what he was taught. And again, this is an idea. It's my most powerful parenting idea. It's get a notebook for each of your children, put it near your bed somewhere, and at night write 1 or 2 sentences on days where you remember something. And you're going to look during the day for things like when your child shows empathy towards another child or a sibling, a random act of kindness that they did, facing a fear, calming themselves when feeling intense emotion, working out a conflict with another child or a sibling, persevering when something's difficult, being honest, befriending a child who's lonely, sharing feelings with you, being a team player. Just write 1 sentence like a fact. Record the fact there that you did this, did this. Don't make judgments about it like I love you because you can just, I noticed that you were kind to that child who didn't have a friend. Boom, just write down all the different ways they exhibited at social emotional learning. Then give them the notebooks to your children on their birthday. So now they have a catalog of all the different cool things they did during the year that were socially and emotionally intelligent, and it highlights the goodness to them. So when they're feeling down or like they're discouraged about life, they can open this up. And if you want to record your voice reading at one time, what a gift to have on a recording, you reading out loud. It would be a lifetime gift they have of you seeing them for a whole year and your voice sharing it. I would start that right away. It would be a wonderful gift. At this point, I just want to show you one last thing and then end. And that is, I said about pressure, and one of the great ways to calm a child, and I would wish I could have had this as a child, is to put gentle pressure on the body. because there's something very calming about pressure. It's like a hug to a child. Hugging is very calming to the nervous system. It's pressure on the body and it slows the nervous system. So any pressure on the body, even if it's pressure like this or on the forehead and back head, is good for the nervous system and calming. I will tell you how to reach me if you want. If in fact you want to reach me with a question, it's at tom@teachingheartinstitute.com, or you can find me at Teaching Heart Institute. If you need support with a child, I can be of support in working with a child or giving you some ideas on how you can work with a child who's dealing with strong emotions. So on that note, I'm going to stop my screen share here and just come back for a second. We're at just 6:01, so I'm going to stop presenting and just come back. I hope some of this information was useful, and if you're watching this on a recording in the future, I hope it was helpful. And I really hope you take some time to not only be gentle on yourself, learning and growing, and again, get online, ask the principal at your child's school for the at-home, in-focus at-home activities, and they'll give you a code that you can get online, and that would be a really powerful way to get support. There will be other parent academies coming up each month. Hopefully you will attend those. Until that time, I wish you well and be well. Have a good evening. Take care.
Thank you so much, Tom. And for those of you listening, I do want you to know that we will send home with our interim reports that go home next Friday, the codes to the at-home activities to all parents in our school district. So this recording will be on our district website from our YouTube channel, as well as making sure we get those resources out to parents. So we just really appreciate your time, and thank you all who joined us this evening.
Good evening, everybody. Bye-bye.